So I've made a few videos on this channel about asexuality, and they've been probably some of my most popular videos, and a lot of people have said that it's helped them. And obviously, if somebody says that something you've done has helped them, you want to do it more. And although I've kind of talked about asexuality as this abstract concept, I've never really talked about how it's affected my life, what my own personal experience is with it, so that's what I'm doing today. So growing up, I was that kid who was always slightly behind everyone else. I was the last kid to learn the hoedown throwdown in my class. I bought a Letterman jacket immediately after they went out of style, and I was also the last one of the kids who needed it to buy a bra, which is ironic considering what we now know about my gender. So when everybody else in my year started getting obsessed with sex and relationships and I wasn't, I kind of assumed it was just another one of those things that I didn't quite get but I would eventually catch up with. Safe to say, that has not happened. I did get crushes on celebrities and people that I liked, but it was almost entirely in a your face is cute, I would like to draw your face kind of way, as opposed to a let's go home to my house and have rapid butt sex right now kind of way. I just said the words rapid butt sex on the internet. People can see this. My employers will search my name and find me saying rapid butt sex. I always heard people describing others as hot, but I never really understood what that word meant because it seemed to be looking at their body, and that was nothing I ever concerned myself with. It was like in the face. So for me, I would call people cute or like attractive, but hot was never something I understood. Obviously, as I grew up in school, the topic of sex became more and more inescapable, and I found myself horrified. I was taught in sex ed that everybody in the world had sex, which meant that one day it was inevitable that I would, and I was terrified. I used to lie awake at night thinking about my inescapable first time and being so scared and worrying about it and being grossed out by it. Meanwhile, most kids my age were lying awake at night imagining having sex with people and feeling other things. So now I'm gonna start talking about something kind of serious, which is intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are those things that you don't want to think about, but for some reason your brain just pops up with anyway. Some examples. Hey. Wouldn't it be great if you just stood up and screamed in the middle of this silent exam? Why? Just scream. You could stab yourself in the eye with that. You could totally murder people right now. The list goes on and on. Most people have these occasionally, so they're really nothing to worry about, although they can be heightened or more frequent for those suffering from various mental disorders. And I got them pretty damn often for a while. And I'm not sure if this is linked to me being asexual or not, but they were almost exclusively sex-based for me, and being ace really didn't help. I would be sitting in class, turn to whoever was next to me, and my brain would go all bow chicka bow wow. And for most people this would be like a fantasy or something, but for me I was like permanently grossed out. Also at the time I was having issues with my orientation in terms of did I like girls, did I like boys, because you know those were the only two options. And back then I identified as a girl, so I repressed any thoughts I had about girls. And if any of you suffer from intrusive thoughts, you'll know that trying to repress them makes them a lot worse. So the ages of about 13 to 15 were extremely uncomfortable for me in that respect. I was scared of being anything other than straight, and I remember saying to my friends something along the lines of, oh, I'm straight, but it's not because I like boys, it's just because I don't like girls. This is actually a super common thing for asexual people to think, because you know, if you don't like people the same gender as you, you aren't gay or bi, so you must be straight, because those are the only possible orientations there are out there. And like most people, my story takes a turn when I find the internet. More specifically for me, Tumblr, because that's where you learn about a bunch of other orientations. And here's where some people would say they heard the word asexual and everything clicked and they all of a sudden realised that was them and everything was okay. But that didn't happen for me, because I heard about all of those terms and still assumed I was straight. It took a really long time for me to admit to myself that I wasn't really into anyone in a sexual way, and almost immediately after I did, I messaged my best friend at the time and told her. But I did it really tentatively, and I kept saying, oh, it's not for definite, it's just a maybe, because I was still scared. And then, well, the next part of this video is about coming out, and it has some experiences in it that aren't all that positive, and some were involuntary, so if you're sensitive then you can skip to whatever time signature I have up here, because it's not that fun. So for a very long time it was just me and that one friend who knew, and I was perfectly okay with that. I was never someone to draw attention to myself or make a large fuss, so I was okay with nobody else knowing. I didn't really want to have a big coming out moment, wasn't my style. But my friend had a Halloween party that year, and like most teen parties, we got onto a game of Truth or Dare. And I got asked, where do you fall on the Kinsey scale, which is basically a scale from 1 to 6 of how attracted you are to your own gender versus others. Come to think of it, the person who asked me that was most likely flirting, but I was very, very uncomfortable. So me and my friend kind of just looked at each other, and I felt uncomfortable, but she was like, well, you know, giving me like, oh, you know, you have to tell them. And obviously everybody was wondering what we were talking about. So I sort of got forced into telling a room full of people that I wasn't ready to, which wasn't the most fun experience of my life. One thing I will say though is that the moment I said it, that maybe I kept saying turned into a definitely. I wasn't possibly asexual, I was asexual. It was almost as if saying it out loud made it make sense in my mind, and I was like, oh, it's actually right, this is who I am. And the cat was out of the metaphorical bag. Luckily, my friends were actually super great about it, and we ended up making tons of puns and jokes, and I never really had to come out to anybody else at my school because they all knew, because my friends kept making so many puns about it. My parents were another story. I kind of gently introduced the idea to them, tested the waters, and eventually said the words to them. I can't actually pinpoint a moment I came out because I dropped so many hints leading up to it that I basically already had. And they didn't yell at me or tell me it was a phase or anything like that, but I kind of got the sense that they thought it was, and they thought I would outgrow it. Plus my mum said some stuff about never having grandkids that made me feel really guilty. But like I said, it could have been a lot worse, and I was pretty lucky to have pretty much the best support network of friends anybody could possibly ask for, and they were and still are invaluable to me. So in terms of relationships, I was in a relationship when I realised I was ace and never really told the person, and then we just broke up and it was okay because I hadn't come out to anyone yet, so I kind of kept it with myself and that friend, and it was okay. The next person I dated was ace themselves, so there was no problem there. We kind of had this unspoken agreement that nothing was ever going to happen, and we were both perfectly fine with that. My most recent relationship was with someone who was not ace, but you know, he knew that I was, we talked about it, we were very open, and I said I didn't want to do anything, and he was perfectly okay with that, and he never pushed me, and he was constantly asking if things were okay, so that was good. So that's what I will say, is if you're in a relationship and you're worried about it because the person you're in a relationship with is an ace or something like that, talk to them. Have communication, and if in the end it turns out you do want different things, don't feel bad for breaking it off. And that's where I am in my story. Maybe one day I'll make a video saying everything that's happened since now. Who knows? So basically that's my story. If any of it resonates with you, that's good. Leave a comment or if you have different experiences to me, and try and help people. If you have questions and stuff, ask us and we'll try and help, because yeah, fun, happy community time. So that was fun. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you at some point. Goodbye!